Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Global Quest closing ceremony live from InVivo headquarters in sunny Paris. This morning, you are going to discover innovative solutions and programs working together for a more sustainable and resilient agri-food system. Before we start, a few words on InVivo Quest. InVivo Quest is an open innovation program launched in 2017, and its mission is to source and accelerate the best innovation in agri-food through connections with partnering programs within the group and an ecosystem of partners. And we do so by connecting these startups through giving them access to testing facilities, co-development opportunities with our strategic projects, and distribution agreements. You're going to see this morning a lot of examples of this type of collaborations, and I'm turning to you, Marie-Cécile. I think we've got quite a program this morning.
Good morning, Jérôme. Good morning to all of you who are connected online. I think we have more than 100 and almost 200 people connected this morning, so it's a great event. I'm really thrilled to co-moderate this great event this morning with Jérôme. So for those of you who are connected, let me tell you that it's going to be a very interactive 2 hours, actually. You will have the possibility to ask your questions, typing them either in French or in English, because it's a bilingual event. As you have noticed, there is simultaneous translation. You can click on the red button on the right-hand side of the screen. So please make your questions as short as possible, because you'll see we have a very busy schedule, and the timing will be really up to speed. So, as you can see on this picture, there are 6 different topics that will be addressed today in short sessions of about 7-8 minutes each. So it means for each of these topics, there will be some experts and there will be some startups explaining their innovations, the solutions that they would like to put on the market to address these challenges. So 6 different topics. We'll address them in 2 blocks. The first block will consist of the protect, regenerate, and optimize issues. And then the second block of 3 will be the valorize, restore, and process. And in the middle of these 2 blocks, we'll have a longer session of 30 minutes focusing on feedback from the field and actually how field experimentations are really key to innovation transfer. So that's the plan for this morning. So we will begin our morning with the first testimony of Thierry Blandinière, the CEO of InVivo.
Hello, Thierry. Thank you for introducing this closing session of Global Quest. Thierry, I wanted to ask you, why such a major theme for this program? First of all, thank you for this invitation. And I'd also like to thank all our supporters since the beginning of the Quest, because we started in 2017. I think this is the 5th edition. Thank you to all partners who have supported us since the beginning. Thank you to all the people who are here today to discuss innovation, and a special thanks to all the startups that have visited us. I think there's been hundreds of startups in 5 years. It's incredible. We are talking about open innovation, and we can see that we've done a good job, and we're very pleased with that. Now we will continue to step up all this and bring together startups and companies to combine the best of both worlds so as to continue to accelerate this agricultural transition. So this morning the theme is very well chosen because the issue today is agricultural transition, how to produce more, better, and in a more sustainable manner. It is now about changing scaling up, optimizing our systems so that all these innovations see the light of day. It's about taking concrete ideas to the field and also improving farmers' income. This is the other challenge. What impact can technology have on this agricultural transition? For a long time, we've been trying to prove that we can produce more and better. So precision agriculture has been experimented in InVivo, in open field for a long time. And what is great is that with these technologies and these innovations, we'll be able to accelerate and make them and make what seems impossible possible. That's why since 2017 we've mobilized at InVivo to find innovative tech solutions to help us deploy in the somewhat old economy these technologies that will accelerate all this potential of precision agriculture that we have in our old enterprises. We're talking about the transition model. We're talking about the farm of tomorrow. What will the farm of tomorrow look like? How can the efforts that farmers are making in this transition be valued? How can technology help that? First, maybe a word about what brings us together today. It's the fight against global warming, demonstrating that agriculture is part of the solution to fight against global warming, especially field crops. We're within a logic where we must now show that finally soil quality with a new agriculture becomes possible. So for the farmer, this makes it possible to generate new income and reimagine the agricultural farm, which will be connected tomorrow. It will be a 4.0 farm with new technologies, highlighting all good practices for precision agriculture, and especially farm that will generate new income for farmers. So, of course, carbon credit is a new market. We have to seize this opportunity that is available to us, but also bioeconomy for circular economy. You talked about it this morning. We need to see how we can create additional income. Then agri-solar is also another area. So we can imagine this new 4.0 farm. It is in front of us. Now it's about deploying it, changing scale, making farmers confident to engage in this new agriculture. You talked about the impact of field crops and low carbon transition. How can the new addition of Soufflet to the InVivo Group further accelerate this momentum? The great thing about the acquisition of Soufflet is that we are now in the process of scaling up. We are giving ourselves more means to invest in these new technologies, and above all, we are entering into a vertical sectoral logics, putting together, for instance, malting barley with malt, wheat with milling. This allows us to have a comprehensive operational view of the full chain. So we'll be able to accelerate all the innovations developed at all levels of the food chain. And thank you to the Soufflet teams that are joining us today. We'll be able to prove that combining the two groups will be very beneficial to French agriculture. This morning, we can also talk about the ecosystem approach of InVivo Quest with an ecosystem of players in the agri-food industry, European cooperative players, and why this truly ecosystem approach is interesting to help these technologies to scale up and help them achieve greater climate and environmental ambitions, particularly. This is what I was saying. What brings us together is this new agriculture, which is being taken up in France, in Germany, in all European countries, all over the world. But our scale is Europe, so it is absolutely necessary that with our German friends from Intercorp, who might like to create BayWa, RWA, and men, in short, all the cooperatives of the European ecosystem, we can gather around an innovative technological partner to demonstrate that finally Europe has a say in the international competition. And God knows the international competition will be here tomorrow. And you're aware of the tensions, of course, the various crises, health crisis, Ukrainian crisis, that must strengthen us and make us work together. Yes, of course. Finally, Thierry, do you have a message for companies, startups, innovative SMEs, and other players which would like to take part in these innovation initiatives alongside the InVivo Group? I wanted to tell you that InVivo since 2017 has been very open. We started open innovation in 2017. You have InVivo teams, they're great. Soufflet's teams, they're also great. They really need to share and want to cooperate. We're really in a co-construction approach. So come and feel confident. Everyone will benefit from this because you're also thinking about return on investment, and we're friendly. So you're welcome to InVivo and to Soufflet.
Blandinière for his kind word and insightful word, and as well for the trust he's giving to not only InVivo Quest but as well other innovation initiatives all across the group.
Thank you, Jérôme. So I think we've heard all the keywords here, finding solutions to address climate change, farms of the future, carbon credits, transition, innovation, all is here, and we're going to explore more in depth all these issues. Now let's turn to Ariane Voyatsakis. She's the agro-industry director for BPI France. BPI France is France's public investment bank, and she's going to explain us how dynamic the agtech and food tech is in France, and how BPI France is actually helping and supporting this ecosystem right now.
Thank you very much to InVivo for the invitation, and congratulations to all the companies that will be presented today and that were shortlisted by InVivo in this Open Innovation Forward Momentum. BPI France is the French public investment bank, and on behalf of the government we finance companies when they are in their innovation and growth stage. We support innovation. We invest, for example, in equity. We also offer banking credits, guarantees, and export financing. In the latest AGF Fund ranking, France is the 8th in the list of countries for fundraising in the world, and the 3rd in Europe, behind Germany and the UK. The Demeter Club figures paint pretty much the same picture. France is the 3rd European country with the most startups, behind the UK and Spain. So France is a leading country for agri-food tech in Europe. The statistics from Digital Food Lab show that fundraising for agri-food tech has increased year after year since 2017. BPI France follows the same dynamic trend, increasing twofold our investment in the sector between 2020 and 2021, so from 100 to 200 million euros worth of support for agri-food tech. France also stands out when it comes to insects that make up half of all fundraising in agri-food tech, as demonstrated by Digital Food Lab's analysis. France is home to more than 600 from farm to fork startups, as you can see on this mapping provided by Exange. These startups enjoy a dynamic landscape in France, since the country is the largest agricultural producer in Europe and has the 2nd largest food industry, just behind Germany. So a great space for startups to try out their innovations alongside large industry players such as InVivo. So how do we support such innovation at BPI France? Well, we have 3 large call for projects under France 2030 in agroecology and also in food production. Companies of all sizes can apply, and the process leads to research partnerships between startups and large companies who team up together to overcome shared challenges in food and agriculture. Our latest call for project aims at financing the scaling up of innovations through subsidies, but also through recoverable advances. And I would invite you to go take a look at our call for project on our website, and please do apply quickly. To know more about what we do in the industry, do go and see our latest sectoral report that highlights innovation trends in green tech, new proteins, healthy food and food tech for both consumers and producers. These same themes are front and center in InVivo Quest, and we are very happy to be a part of this dynamic partnership that we contribute to with our calls for projects.
And we'd like to thank Ariane Voyatsakis for her testimony, and as well the BPI France for the full support it has given to InVivo Quest since its beginning in 2017. Now time to move on to the topic of today, this year's program of InVivo Quest. And as we said, as a 5th edition, InVivo Global Quest was launched to identify innovations on 6 of the key challenges that our industry will face. So let's watch a quick video to get started. as we saw in the video, these challenges are to protect the crops in the most sustainable way, to optimize the use of resources, both inputs and natural resources, to regenerate our agricultural soils, to restore and preserve biodiversity, to valorize agricultural biomass in the best way, and to find new sources of sustainable and healthy ingredients. And this is why from September 2021 to late March 2022, we held innovation sessions between a group of pre-qualified startups and experts, both from our group and an ecosystem of partners. Today, you are going to see a group of projects providing solutions, we believe, to these 6 challenges, and starting with the first one, Quest Protect on sustainable crop care. So there is a need to reduce the amount of chemicals that are being used in agriculture, at least in European agriculture, for climatic reasons, to lower the carbon footprint of the productions, for environmental purposes as well, to preserve the soils, the biodiversity, and the water streams, and to answer as well to new consumer demands. However, these reductions need to be controlled and strongly supported by data and technology to minimize the risk of yield loss, and this is what we will see this morning. Many solutions currently exist to reduce the use of these plant protection products. We can name biosolutions, we can name robotics, smart spraying. And so last September, we organized an innovation session which brought together innovative companies positioned on, for instance, the application of biocontrol agents with bee vectoring technology, on fungal pressure sensors with, for instance, Tornado, or on the production of biopheromone with the company BioFero. An example I'd like us to discuss now by welcoming David Liobek-Alaf, Business Development Manager for the company BioFero, and Mireille Piron, Biosolutions Sourcing Manager for Bioline Agrosciences. Hello Mireille, hello David, great to see you this morning. I hope you're doing great. So my first question would be for you, David. So we mentioned that you are producing pheromone through fermentation. So what does it mean? For which crops it is intended, and which pests do you target?
So pheromones, in particular, mating disruption, is a known and recognized methodology to take care of lepidopters, which means moths, butterflies. If we are looking at Europe, that would be Ostrinia nubilalis or Sesamia nonagroides. If we are looking at South America, we'll be looking at the fall army worm, Spelatea frugipeda. So these pests that are attacking these large crops, attacking corn. These pests are very hard to get rid without GMO. They're hard to get rid without heavy insecticides.
Okay, so if we clarify, corn borer for the corn, so for our French watching people, Pyrale du maïs, that you are trying to tackle. And so what is the competitive advantage of BioFero? Is it your process, your fermentation process?
Yes, so it has been years, finally decades, that mating disruption is used in crops. It was in very expensive crops, let's say vineyards or other high value. In order to be able to go to corn, or to go to rice, or to go to soy, or any extensive type of crops, we need to reduce the prices. And reducing prices can only be done through new technologies. And in BioFero, with fermentation, we hope to be able to arrive to make a difference in the way that insecticides are used globally.
And what kind of price range can you achieve with that type of technology? As you mentioned, that it's fairly critical in the use of this type of product.
We should be able to be more competitive than insecticides down the line.
Okay, so that's that's a fairly.
We're speaking about $15-20 per hectare, everything included.
And the normal price was, I think, in the range of $200 a acre before this type of tech.
Yeah, about 100. Yes.
Okay, so that's an impressive ratio, David. Mireille, I think your company, Bioline Agrosciences, which is an InVivo company, is focusing on the different part of biocontrol. Could you introduce us briefly BioLine AgroSciences?
Yeah. So BioLine AgroSciences has some microbials against pests and disease, but its main activity is done with microorganisms called also beneficials. And those microorganisms are based on predatory mites, but also on predatory and parasitoid insects and nematodes. And the target of the microorganisms are pests in different kind of crops like vegetables, so tomato, cucumber, eggplant, sweet pepper, and also against we are working on soft fruit, ornamentals, corn, vineyard. For example, in France, we are working in corn against European corn borer, so Ostrinia nubilalis or Pyrale du maïs. In grape, we are working different against different grape moths like Lobesia, Cochilis, and also Cryptoblades. And in vegetables and soft fruit, we are working against whiteflies, aphids, thrips, and red spider mites.
Hello, thank you, Mireille. I have a question. I understand that BioLine AgroSciences is discussing with startups. What do you expect from this collaboration and from these exchanges?
Yeah, in fact, we all know that startups are very innovative. So the interest in discussing with startups is to share knowledge and expertise of sciences outside our core skills and to have the access to the latest technologies. And the latest technology, the innovation is observed not only in the nature or the origin of the biocontrol products, but also in the manufacturing, and which could help to be more productive or with a better quality. And this help a company like us to be more competitive in the market.
Thank you, Mira. Really clear. David, same question for you. So, what would be your interest in approaching large corporations like InVivo and a company like BioLine AgroSciences? Sorry.
So we are very good at what we do, but we do a very tiny part of the whole vertical. Big companies such as InVivo or BioLine have so many other aspects, so many other pieces of the answer, that in order to find the right IPM, the right way to speak with a farmer, the right way to implement this, we need big companies, integrated companies who know what they are doing. And I think that's the best way to go ahead. It's hand in hand.
Yeah, so the collaboration, between large corp and startups is the recipe of success. And Mireille, can I ask you your opinion on Bioferro solution? I know you know it a bit because you've been taking part into this innovation session last September. What's your opinion on their technology?
We all know that mating disruption is very efficient. At the moment, it's widely used in crops like grape or orchards. But the limiting factor for the row crops like corn is really the cost. And Bioferro, with its innovative pheromones production technology, will provide an affordable biocontrol solution. And we can expect in the future a development of pheromones or mating disruption in other crops than high-value one. And it will help also a company like us to have a complementary solution to our beneficials. Sorry.
Okay, great. So yeah, cost is the main pain point so far. We understood that, and yeah, collaboration can help tackle this between large corporation like Bioline Agrosciences that has producing capacity and an innovative company like BioFerro. Thank you both. Unfortunately, time is up for us. That was a pleasure to have you, Mireille and David, to discuss this very interesting topic that is biocontrol. And now time to move on to our second topic of the morning, which is Quest Optimized, dedicated to precision ag.
So, what is key in sustainable agriculture is that farming needs to continue to be productive and competitive, and that farmers' incomes need to be protected and maintained and maybe increased and maximized. But at the same time, we need also to protect resources, especially water and soils. So how is it possible? Well, actually, precision agriculture can make this possible, optimizing farmers' crop management decisions, helping them to anticipate and manage risks. So precision agriculture is addressing several objectives: optimizing water management and reducing chemical use, protecting biodiversity, and also reducing greenhouse gas emissions. So many startups were selected in this Global Quest section, but we are going to focus now on one of them that is very promising. It's a French startup. It's called Green Shield, and it's actually aiming at reducing pesticide use with spot spraying of either conventional pesticides or bio-based solutions or laser solutions based on plant health monitoring and modeling of pests and diseases. So we have now with us François Feugier. He's the CEO of Green Shield. Hello, François.
Hello.
Good morning.
Hi, Cécile. Hello, Jérôme.
Nice to see you. So, François, could you please start by describing how Green Shield solutions operate? How is crop health monitored? And how is the decision taken to spray pesticides or not, where and when?
Okay, so globally, Green Shield's purpose is to minimize epidemic risk. So for that purpose, we developed a global system that gathers information from various sensors and that supplies turnkey strategies to reduce pesticides. So one of our solutions, as you said, is the spraying pattern strategy. It is based on percolation phenomenon. So just to give an idea of how it works, you can imagine you have a forest occupied by trees and gaps, and you will set fire somewhere in that forest. And depending on the fraction of trees you have in the forest, the fire will spread at a different speed. But the surprise is that at some fraction of trees in the forest or gaps, which is known to be for that particular forest, square forest with square trees and square gaps, the fire will not be able to spread from about 95% of trees. So if you have more than a half of your forest which is covered by trees, nonetheless, the fire cannot spread and burn all the forest. So we use this principle for pesticide reduction. And if you want to summarize all the situations in the forest, you have, as you can see, you will see that it's not linear with the fraction occupied by trees. So if you have, at some moment, if you have too few trees in the forest, the fire will stop, although you still have trees. And we use this strategy to pesticide reduction. So what we do is we think of the fire as a disease, and we think of the trees as plants that are not protected by any treatment or sensitive plants. And the gaps in that forest, they are plants that are protected by some treatment or that are resistant to the disease. And you can transpose this phenomenon to agriculture to reduce the use of pesticides. And this phenomenon is universal, so it can be applied globally in theory to many different types of crops.
Thank you. It's very interesting because percolation is not a very intuitive aspect that you would immediately think of addressing these issues. So I understand your models manage pests and diseases populations dynamics at low level, but not down to zero, actually. And so you need to keep it manageable by farmers. And this actually reminds us of the COVID-19 pandemics, when you had the policymakers and the people who were in charge of dealing with these pandemics, how to live with the virus. This is, I think, exactly the objective of your solution.
Well, yeah, exactly. In fact, we were talking about epidemiology here, and epidemiology obviously applies to human diseases, but also to crop pests. And the main difference is that in human population is well mixed, so people can move. So the spatial structure is not very important. On the other hand, in crops, plants, they are static, they cannot move. So the spatial structure is very important. And therefore, in the COVID, when you want to reduce the R naught below 1, to make the virus having very hard time to spread to new resources, we want to do the same thing for crops in plots. And therefore, we need to think about spatial structure of the spraying patterns to protect or not protect some plants and not protect everything. So some plants will be vaccinated and some others will not be vaccinated. But what we see with the COVID, vaccinated people will protect non-vaccinated people. It's the same philosophy.
This is very clear. Thank you very much for your explanation. So how does your solution of selective spraying operate on grapevine, field crops, and in horticulture? What field is the most promising for Green Shield? I think you have a video to illustrate this.
Well, yes. So you can turn off the sound is not very interesting. Yes, so we built maps that will be readable by all the devices and equipment for sprayers. So these maps, spraying maps, they are built with our models, and they can be used in the sprayer equipment, so that your equipment will just read the map and spray all the patterns in the field. And in fact, we can use this a wide variety of different crops, like grapevines and like beetroot, sugar beet. And obviously the patterns will be different. And each time you go for treatment, you will have a different pattern depending on the context, local context, or the presence of the disease or the climate.
Thank you, François. Really clear. So we discussed in introduction all the benefits we can expect from the environment to do spot spraying. But so what investment, financial investment and return on investment can farmers using your solution expect?
Well, in fact, for the last experiment we did, so in terms of investments, so the material which are controlling the sprayers, they are already on the market. We don't develop these devices. It's something which is well spread. What we do is we just use all the capabilities of these devices to make complicated spraying patterns. So this won't change your devices. If you're already equipped with that, this won't change your habits. Our tests, experiments in the field for sugar beet, for example, we could reduce by 35% the fungicide and impacting about 2 or 3% of the yield, reducing 2 or 3% of the yield. But we know that we did this on some type of equipment that cannot make very small and fine patterns. So we know we can do better with finer patterns and therefore finer equipment. As for grapevine, we experimented in 2021, so last year, and this year was particularly high for mildew pressure. And therefore, this was a particular year for that disease. Also, we experimented with biosolutions, not conventional fungicides. And finally, we had not yet optimized the schedule for spraying. Nonetheless, we could reduce by about 26% the quantity of products and impacting the yield by 2 or 3% with no impact at all on the quality of the juice. So we know that we can clearly do better with more conventional, more regular conditions.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, François, for this explanation. We're running out of time and we need to stop this session here. I'm sorry for that. We don't have any questions from the public. So I think we can move on to the next session, Quest Regenerate. So, regenerative agriculture sounds like the new holy grail. It's certainly a buzzword these days. What does it mean? Well, it's all about soil health, really. Soil health, carbon farming. These are really trendy concepts right now, and there are many people working in these directions because we all understand that soil health really is at the nexus of so many different issues and challenges that need to be addressed by farmers today. So there are carbon initiatives that are flourishing in various parts of the world because these practices could actually help farmers generate carbon credits, making actually conservation agriculture more competitive, and these carbon credits could be sold on the market. So the question is how to build an evidence-based regenerative agriculture. Well, for this, some MRV tools, monitoring, reporting, and verification tools, are being developed worldwide to bring evidence and measure the carbon content in soils and its change with time. So we have here a very interesting startup with us today. Smart Cloud Farming is the name of the startup. It's very promising. It's from Germany, and it has set up a carbon MRV via satellite imagery. So do we have with us today Michele Bandecchi, the CEO and co-founder of Smart Cloud Farming?
Hello, Marie-Cécile. Hello, John. Thank you for having me here.
Hello, Michele. Can you hear us well?
Yes, I can.
Good. Okay. So, Michele, could you please tell us how is it possible to monitor, report, and verify soil's organic carbon content from satellite imagery?
Sure. Satellite images are basically used as input and processed without revolutionary techniques for image processing called deep learning. That is a part of artificial intelligence. We build our artificial intelligence technologies to read basically satellite images and provide a 3D soil map of soil organic carbon as output. So once you give us your location and when you want us to measure it, because we can measure right now, we can measure in the past, last year, 2 years ago, we basically retrieve the satellite images corresponding to the place and the time. We process it and give you basically your percentage content of soil organic carbon as output. It's simple as that.
Sounds simple, but it's not that easy, right? In terms of features, how accurate is it and what's the resolution?
You're right, Mrs. Hill is needed to spend a long time making it simple, but it wasn't easy at all. In fact, the artificial intelligence technology that backed our product is so revolutionary that we were able also to internationally patent it 3 weeks ago. So I'm very proud of that. In terms of accuracy, we reach the same accuracy as when you compare two soil labs measuring the same soil sample. So meaning, at the end of the story, an accuracy of more than 83%. Our current resolution is 15 meters times 15 meters. That corresponds, it is equivalent basically of having 40 more or less soil samples being taken per hectare. And the measurement of output is a percentage content of soil organic carbon at 30 centimeter depth. And of course, we do that remotely.
Very impressive indeed. So here we can see your carbon visualization tool in action. Can you tell us a bit more?
Yeah, sure. So here you can see basically two locations. So you can see Germany, and you can see you're gonna see like later in the video also US. Here I want to basically prove and show you what we mean by accuracy every time we talk about that. So we did a blind test, and in this visualization tool you can see basically the red dots are the soil samples we're taking on the ground, and you can see the comparison for each field basically of the average predicted soil organic carbon from our side and basically the averaged ground truth soil organic carbon. So you can see how close it is and how representative it is as well. On top of that, there's also the fact that we averaged out more points per field than the soil samples that you can physically take, of course. Therefore, sometimes when you see the averaged field that is deviating a bit from the average ground truth, you just have to go and see the corresponding close soil organic carbon being taken close to our prediction, and you can see that that one is closer. So in a way, we have a partial representation of the field that is taking into account more points. Therefore, it's like it's make a true picture of the heterogeneity of soil. That is the big things to figure it out, basically to take into account for any kind of practices of farming and as well regenerative farming.
Thank you. Thank you, Michele. This is very clear. So if I understand, if I'm not mistaken, the standardization of methodologies to estimate soil health is actually at stake right now, because it seems that there are so many different private initiatives in the whole world that how is your MRV system compatible with the Vera, the gold standard, the Cool Farm tool systems?
Sure. How remote measurement is aligned with the standards. We are providing basically the first and the fundamental data layer of soil organic carbon in this case, to enable all the other players to deliver a better, more transparent, and more trustworthy carbon market. This is the goal in here. We have to enable the trust of a new sector. In the agri-carbon landscape, if we can picture that, we are placing ourselves in the monitoring and verification part of the chain. So basically, if you need the soil organic carbon measurement being taken fast, precise, and a scale, especially as input, and to use that as part of your agriculture models to check basically the regenerative direction of your carbon project. Many agri-food companies committed to net zero by 2030, 2050. So you need to understand if you're going in the regenerative path, or you want to optimize basically the regenerative supply chain, just contact us. Happy to help.
Thank you, Michele. Really clear. And so there's a lot of buzzing in the remote sensing world. So we saw in the previous slide, one of the companies that took part of in our innovation session is actively innovating in that field, Constellar, to name them, a German company. How is your solution and algorithm compatible with that type of new innovations that is happening in the field of remote sensing?
Sure. The guys from Constellar are doing great things to increase the availability of new satellites for many users case, including agriculture. Want to say hi to Max, the CEO. We are very happy to deploy new processing technology to make the best out of those satellite images. So we really feel like as part of a supply chain for ultimate and very accurate insight and data. By the way, fun fact: we and Constellar are also sharing the same investors, FTTF from Munich. So yeah, we are part of the same family.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Michele. It's time for us to end this session, so thank you for your contribution.
Thank you, Michele.
And so we've been through the first 3 topics of this Global Quest 2022. We've been through sustainable crop care with the Quest Protect. We've been through precision agriculture with the Quest Optimize, and then through soil health and carbon farming with the Quest Regenerate. Now let's move on to a longer session that I mentioned in the beginning. This longer session will be dedicated to feedback from the field and testing innovation, how important it is to test these innovations so that they can become a reality. And we'll also switch to French.
Good morning, Olivier. Now for this session, which is dedicated to feedback, experimentation of innovations in the field, there are 3 speakers. Olivier Descroidet, Director of the Open Field Pilot Farm, then Carole Roca, Director of Firm Leader, and then Benoît Rousseau will be the last speaker, who is in charge of innovation for the Soufflet Group. You have 10 minutes speaking time for each. Olivier, open field, it's the 3rd pathway of agriculture, which is close to important to BioLine. So could you speak about this 3rd pathway? It is materialized by a platform, Open Field, in the Paris Basin. So we wanted to have this mission to be able to measure, to prove, to demonstrate innovating practices and to communicate to different players of the agricultural world these innovations and communicate with them. So there were different players, upstream, downstream, sectors, agri-food industry players, and also agtech players identified with the help of InVivo Quest. So measuring, proving, demonstrating in real life. Is that it? Yes, exactly. So the platform was open to the public in June 2021, and I was pleased to be part of the people who were lucky to visit it. This year, it's not the case. We can't visit it. But what is happening right now in 2022, maybe we can go back to the past campaign, because the idea is that building on that success, we wanted to bring you some feedback so you can visualize that through the video. So we've seen what happened in 2021, many activities, many visitors, many testing of different innovations programs. So what is up for 2022-2026 Open Field program? Now, we wanted to go further in agronomic innovation, and we set up a platform. It's a pluriannual platform for 5 years. We will deal with low carbon soil conservation, conventional practices, also that we will use to compare technical innovations. So, in short, this platform, well, it's going to be 14 crops, 5 rotations, representatives of the France, farm, methane, cattle rearing, beetroot, oil seeds, and so on. About 50 combination of trials. We're going to measure with environmental, economic, technical parameters the results of each innovating practice. And we set up also a network with different sensors to measure the conditions within which these demonstrations and trials are being conducted through soil, water, and air. So, as a summary, you can imagine that this is a plot 12 meters or 24 meters wide with the different rotations in a succession, and we have low carbon reduction, FD, and conventional agriculture. And you can see with this mapping all the different trials and the diversity of pathways which are being explored. Now, the open field modus operandi, could you maybe give us some feedback on 2 startups, circular, carbon, and macro, namely shortlisted in 2021. Now, in the sourcing of InVivo Quest in France and at the international level, I wanted to use 2 examples to show you the relationship between Quest and the implementation in the field of agricultural implementation. You have the biochars which are used. With biochar, we want to see how to sequestrate carbon in the soil. They can also help us to fight against water stress. We really are the whole core of the issue, and soil fertilization and improving yields. Now, for that, we made different systems available to circular carbon. In the farm, you have a heated greenhouse that we use to different the non-toxicity of biochar on crops, and also directly in open field on plots. We will do some trial of biochar spraying on maize, for instance. The other example is Macrotech. It's an English company. We're working on the reduction of entrance through a macro system. We want to improve spraying coverage, reduction of drifting, etc. And we have on our sprayers the macro system, which is installed directly in the farm with their teams coming from England, and we tested in the field. We measured the different improvements thanks to the macro system that we were able to witness. So I spoke about measuring, proving, and there is, of course, another important word, communicating. Now, the results of Open Field and the previous editions are available on our platform, openfield-bioline.fr. So you can see the first results here with macro gains in the reduction of plant protection products up to 40%. So you can see that it's huge. And these are the results of the first trials. So circular carbon, we have a session later on bioeconomy. This is a very interesting model. It is between carbon theme, water stress, and bioeconomy. Thank you for these two examples. They are very practical. How can other platforms benefit from that innovation, and how is it possible to participate in the Open Field project? There are 56 trials to test innovative technologies. So through the QR code that you can see on your screen, you can flash that QR code with your mobile phone. If you're in the ag tech startup or well-established company on robotics, on sensors, precision agriculture, decision-making tools, and other themes. It's open. You can scan this QR code. You can apply to take part in Open Field, and we will be pleased to look into your application and to see how you can participate in this very interesting landscape. Now, your partnership with Circular Carbon started when? And when did you start experimentation with biochar? Well, this is what is interesting. We source, we don't try to see whether it's good or not. We really count on the rating system of experts. In September, we approached Circular Carbon and we started the trials in January. Last question, because we're reaching the end of the 10 minutes. Now, how do you link up with the other themes, enhancing value after the field? So this is the interesting part with these technical and agronomic innovations. It's about consumer through a better food. So we work with the agri-food players in order to find the results. And Carol will explain that with AgriForest. We have digital tools to cover the whole sector. And thank you, Olivier, for your feedback, and we are waiting for you, all the startups, so you can apply to take part in Open Field. So we're waiting for you. Thank you, Carol. Good morning, Carol. Welcome. You're the director of Farm Leader, and could you please tell us more about Farm Leader and how do they link up with the Open Field program we've heard of? In details now, the Farm Leader Network, 500 farmers, 30 cooperatives, and many partners cooperating to support agricultural transition. More particularly, they build on innovation and digital innovation. This is actually the constant thread. How do we operate? We're organized on the basis of a living lab. It's a system based on 3 pillars: local presence through cooperatives and farmers, open system, collaborative system, including many partners to move faster, and a network which is geared towards users, the farmer, and also our advisor, the advisor supporting farmers all through the process. I think you have a film to illustrate all this. And now, just say that there is a complementarity with the Open Field, because for a system to become a solution, it has to comply with 2 many aspects. to be validated from the technical point of view, hence the interest of working with institutional partners and cooperating with Open Field, and the strong link we have with them makes it possible for us to demonstrate technologies in real life conditions. And the second aspect for these services to become solutions in the transition is that they're adopted by partners. Solutions which have to prove that they are sound from the technical point of view, robust, and that they can be adopted by farmers. It's the role of a farm leader to facilitate discovery, but also adoption, hence development of new transition solutions. Now, let me now respond to what you requested. Now, to be really support farmers, we have three priorities. Agri-tech, you're familiar with that. In agri-tech, you have support, a daily support to farmers, and also territorial management. How can digital technology with data, which is obtained dynamically, can be deployed on a larger scale, having impact on environment. And the sector part is with digital technology, we can readjust the distribution of value with different players, industrialists, farmers, cooperatives, and so on. So you can hear what farmers said within the framework of this. Now, we're fond of this kind of new technologies. It's true that in the last 10 years or so, farmers have become more aware of the environment. We're constantly trying to move in that direction. There is a change that is going to happen, and that motivates us to continue this job. Today, it's true that I'm also keen on all these new technologies. Agriculture is going through this. It's the way it's going. There are decision-making tools with the sensing, GPS, embedded sensors that will allow us to work in a more serenity in the future. Can you be a beekeeper while being at the forefront of technologies? Yes, absolutely. You can be a beekeeper and be at the forefront of technology. There's no problem with that. Connected farms are using numbers and words that can confirm that we are doing better, but we could not confirm it, especially by bringing technology via connected hives. This type of tool indirectly allows us to make better wine, because I believe that when I intervene at the right time in terms of treatments, that I protect my plant in a correct manner, the grape, obviously the final product will be better.
It was interesting, I think, to hear the voice of farmers this morning. It's really crucial to hear from them. So thank you for this video. So if I understand correctly, in this 2-hour session, we're going to be talking about open innovation. Open innovation is really a key word to our discussion in this quest. But why is it so important to do open innovation? Well, it's important for two reasons. First of all, because open innovation is, well, it's true, very fashionable at the minute, but it really ties in with the living lab that I mentioned earlier. It's all about collaboration. And in innovation, and digital innovation even more so, it's very important to collaborate because they are brand new topics. In the digital field, when digital arrived in agriculture, we did have some experience on software that has been around for a long time, and farmers are well connected. But the problem is we didn't really know how digital could bring about solutions for agriculture. We didn't really know how we could overcome challenges in agriculture with digital tools. So with innovation, what we want to do is to draw on everybody's skills and knowledge. Agriculture is a very structured sector, so what we want to do is to bring digital in that sector to overcome challenges. And what's also very important for me is that we need to be able to pick innovations outside of agriculture and bring them into the industry. Secondly, something that is even more important for us in May and June, more specifically, is to look at open innovation in terms of collaboration between companies. In other words, how large companies and startups can team up together and speed up innovation and speed up the design of solutions. Startups are very creative, they're very nimble, they can adapt to markets, to what happens on the ground. And large companies, they can offer the strong foundations and the space for these solutions to be scaled up and deployed on a large scale and speed things up, generally speaking. And actually on June the 2nd, we'll be inaugurating the Farm Leader initiative with InVivo, and it's all about bringing InVivo closer to startups. So on the 2nd of June for that event, thank you very much. We've penciled that in. Can you tell us a bit about the dynamism of ag tech in France and globally? In 2015, ag tech was very dynamic. Maybe it's slowed down a little bit with the pandemic and the whole sector has consolidated itself. Is that right? Well, I think that, yes, a lot of people agree indeed on the fact that there was a very dynamic period between 2015 and 2020. It's true that the pace of innovation has slowed down somewhat. Nonetheless, there is a lot of progress being made. For instance, there is a true desire from governments to speed up innovation and to support innovation in the long term. So what we can do with the France 2030 funding program will help us get faster to solutions. And then there's R&D. There are opportunities that need to be identified, and in fact that have been identified, but they need to find their expression on the ground now. And once you've come up with the right idea, with a good idea, it's not the end of the journey. What you still need to do is to speed up development, scale up, and the criteria to become a unicorn is first of all to have the right level of turnover and the right amount of users as well. But between the POC and the development on the ground, that actually leads to impact. That's a step that we still need to take, and that's what we do. We help with our Farm Leader program, and it's true in France, and it's true across the world. There was a lot of investment in ag tech last year, plus 51% compared to the previous year. It's one of the pillars of our cooperation with Quest is to facilitate these discussions between the national and international level, both ways actually, so that we can facilitate and encourage exports. And that ties in with Ariane's presentation about BPI France, where we had figures for France, Europe and the world. So it's all extremely interesting. Could you maybe share with us a couple of examples of young innovative companies whose technologies you've tested out in the Farm Leader? Well, yes, we're going to kick off with a little film from Lebelio. Lebelio is a crop monitoring service. So it's a test because, or we call it a test because it's the best way to explain what we do with these companies. But in actual fact, when we test out a solution, what we do is that we encourage farmers to take ownership of a service, to use it, And there are three important elements there. First of all, it's about getting farmers to discover the service, then to train them to actually be able to use the technology and to get the most out of it. And thirdly, it's also about encouraging farmers to share this technology with their peers. So these three elements are the ones that we work on for Ferme Leader, for the deployment of these solutions. Now for Abellio, what was interesting there is that by discussing with farmers, we allowed them to adjust, to recalibrate. They were very nimble and agile, and they were able to reposition themselves and to answer the needs of users. Tel Aqua is another good success story. We've been working with them for 3 years, and we've done an incredible amount of work with them to speed up their development on the ground. So over the last 3 years, they have really made a lot of progress thanks to feedback. Every time we work with a company, we give them a user assessment on quality and quantity that allows them to know exactly where they stand and allows them to change the course of what they're doing if necessary. And all that feedback is put up on our platform, and you've got all the ratings for all the farmers. You've got their testimonies, their own feedback, etc. Well, look, thank you very much. We are running a tiny bit late, but I'd just like to finish on Agri Progress. You set up this platform that allows people to track the process from farm to distribution. What about Agri Progress at the moment? Where does it stand? Well, I think we said everything. It's true that the principle is the same. Olivier talked about it. It's performance indicators first and foremost that are essentially based on what farmers do every single day. So it's about being cross-cutting. It's about being collaborative between the different players. And we've currently completed the POC, and we are now offering different companies that service based on our experience with the 5 cooperatives and 40 farmers who've played ball. Well, thank you very much, Caroline, for being here with us. We're now going to have Benoît Rousseau, who is in charge of innovation for Soufflé, and he is our last speaker. And I see that you haven't arrived empty-handed. You're our last speaker for this segment for Global Quest 2022, and we're going to be talking about tests on the ground and feedback from the ground. So you are going to be talking about added value at industry level. This is why you've come over with this lovely bottle, and you've got a tracking system that is backed by blockchain technology in craft beer. So can you tell us a bit more about how it all works? Well, yes, at the end of the year with Soufflé, we launched the Transparency Project. So it's a blockchain program that allows us to offer full transparency to the industry. And you have here one product that can be traced from beginning to end with our solution. Who was your technical partner for that process? Well, we talk a lot about open innovation today, so we worked with Crystal Chain, a company that offered us a very good platform to address the needs of our brewer clients. And I believe it's not your first encounter with blockchain. You've used it in wheat, for example, but with another technical partner. Well, yes, you're absolutely right. What we did in wheat was indeed a very useful experience. We've got 6 kinds of flour that are currently tracked with blockchain technology at the minute. So yeah, it's all about finding the right partners and the right technical partners. I believe that you have a short video. Yes, I think that it will be interesting to take a look at that. Well, thank you very much for sharing this video with us. It's all very appetizing. We all want to have a slice of bread. But why blockchain? Why did you choose that tech? Well, it's true that at the moment we really need to help consumers in making the right choices. So with blockchain, we can really do that, and it's about really convincing people that they're doing the right thing. And we also want to be perceived as an innovative supplier and show that we're bringing new solutions to the table that allows our clients to go further and to put a more comprehensive and more catchy narrative together. You talked also about the negotiation time with distributors, that it's much faster with blockchain. Well, it's true that, yeah, when you introduce blockchain into the discussion, it shakes up the negotiation process. It's true that you're bringing more value. So when you've got the right people in front of you, you can really get things going much faster and keep people for longer, make them, loyal on the long term. Okay, now when you take a look at innovative digital systems, there's precision farming, upstream, and then there's tracking system. And the key to all of that is the interoperability of systems. So of course, I have in mind agri-progress that we mentioned earlier, but it is crucial, isn't it, to have interoperable systems to break down silos. Absolutely. And blockchain is really the cherry on the cake, because there's a lot of work that has been done prior to running that tech. We have all the contributors of the blockchain who needs to be, it's true, on the same page for blockchain to be able to work. And Soufflé has been very good at that, at putting everybody on the same footing. And it's true that the first link in the chain, so farmers who use tools like SMAG and increment these tools, they are really the key for us to get our hands on the information that we can then process. So it's not always easy to get access to this information, but for carbon, for example, in the future, if we have the data, we can create a great deal of value, and we'll also be able to monetize that data. And we can also display it to consumers, of course, and marketing is a very good driver in that. Soufflé is also an important digital player with farmers, is that right? Yeah, if you look at high-tech investment trends, we are slightly ahead, in fact, of the dynamic in 2017 with our digital services and our digital services. We developed the Farm Me app that allows us to track diseases, track weather as well, and capture data. So the idea is really to be at the heart of all these uses, to think about what could be done in the future, and think up new features as well. Okay, we're going to wrap up with a final question on open innovation more broadly. How does open innovation fit in at Soufflé? Well, as it was probably demonstrated earlier, open innovation is really part of our DNA. We work with startups that went through the Quest programs in the past. There are also uses on bioprotection, biostimulation that we use in our crisis laboratory. So what we want to do is to be connected to these uses to be faster. And when you're smaller, you can go faster and be more nimble. So we are a large setup, so we can help smaller startups have access to a larger scale of farmers and farms. Well, thank you very much for telling us about open innovation on the ground and giving a voice to the people who work in the fields. That's it for this middle segment of our session, and we're going to now move on to the three final themes of our session. We're now going to go to valorize, restore, and process in the second part of this morning's session.
Quest Valorize. We are now focusing on the bioeconomy and how to upgrade actually agricultural biomass in a circular bioeconomy. So why is it important? In fact, we all know that we need to reduce waste and losses in agriculture, in the food industry, because it's a major source of greenhouse gas emissions, and because actually we can valorize and monetize waste. So let's try to add value there. And we actually had the example of circular carbon a few minutes ago. It's an example. So there's a number of companies that are trying to transition from a linear economy to a circular bio-based economy, in other words, the bioeconomy, which is in fact at the nexus of food security, energy security, and climate change. So all the startups that have been selected this year in the Global Quest are developing solutions to upgrade and valorize agricultural and food losses and waste, and therefore avoiding the food non-food competition that could happen sometimes in the bioeconomy concept. So we are now very happy to welcome two startups. Vinea Energy is a French startup, and Nafisi is a British startup. They both upgrade agricultural biomass from waste in new value chains to process non-food products that are renewable energy and packaging. So my following questions will be directed to each of you. Florence Miramedi, you're the CEO of Nafisi Research. Welcome. And Alice Shaw, you're the CEO of Vinea Energy, and all of you are online, so it's wonderful. The technique is working really well this morning. I'm really happy about that. So the first question, and let's start with Florence. The first question will be, first, what feedstocks do you upgrade, and why was there a need to do so? What are the potential quantities your companies could upgrade?
Thank you first for inviting us at this live. So the different agricultural residues or waste that we can transform into a paper pulp for packaging are really varied. So it's from wheat straw, rice straw, oat or barley straw, but also maize stover. But also some plants like reed that spreads in the rivers and also miscanthus. We have also other raw materials such as date palm leaves or cotton stems that we have also tested and work really well. So the reason we've really started with this many years ago to do something with this waste is because globally a lot, I mean, it's millions of tons that are burned or left to rot, and even left to rot, there is greenhouse gas emission. So that was our main reason, and obviously knowing that there's a need, and a growth in the need for fiber for packaging. So the two in parallel.
Thank you, Florence. Alice, could you please tell us what kind of feedstocks your company upgrades?
Yes, sure. Thank you very much for having me. So Vinya Energy, we really focused on the waste that is left from winemaking and especially vine growing. So the first feedstock we have tackled is to collect and upgrade vine stems. Because when a plot of vines is uprooted, they are for the moment still burnt out in the open. If you asked about quantities, so in France, it's 25,000 hectares of vines that are uprooted each year. And the Région Nouvelle-Aquitaine, so around Bordeaux, where we are based, alone accounts for 5,500 hectares. And if we look at the numbers in detail, when you burn a hectare of vines in the open, it will emit the equivalent of 80 tons of CO2 into the atmosphere. So it's really looking at those numbers that we decided to really look at what we could do with vine stems.
Very interesting. So in each case, it's really adding value to something that has been just wasted and not valorized at all. Let's stay with you, Alice, for the second question. So you do collect and upgrade the vine stems, and then in what kind of product do you upgrade these feedstocks, and what is their added value compared to their competitors?
Yeah, well, at the moment, we transform the vine stems into wood chips and agro pellets for the production of energy. The interest of vine stems is that they have a very high calorific power, so they will produce a lot of energy for the same quantity. We also produce mulch, which can be used especially to retain water at the surface of soils. Mostly we work with local communities, so our pellets, for example, are used in the area where they are produced, and they will supply small biomass boilers, so to heat schools or townhouses, for example. We're also working on the development. This is a phase of R&D, of research and development. So we're working on biochar, which is really interesting for vine growers because it retains water in the soils, and it can also depollute the soil, especially from heavy metals such as copper, for example, which is very widely used in vine growing. So we're looking to upgrade really this waste into solutions that will be viable locally and for the vine growers especially.
Thank you. Yeah, we see that the local dimension of the bioeconomy here is very important, the territory. Okay, Florence, could you please tell us in what kind of products you valorize all the waste that you have described earlier?
Yeah, so we transform the agricultural residues into a paper pulp that is then a raw material for the molded fiber products, packaging, or for paper packaging. So these are the two main segments that we are targeting for the paper pulp, as we are producing unbleached paper pulp from all these agricultural residues. So what I forgot to mention was about the capacity. So we can transform from 20 ton per day or 40 ton per day of raw material to up to 800 ton per day of raw material to into paper pulp. And so the process is a patented process that uses in average 50% less energy. I was mentioning about the process that transforms the raw material, the agri-waste, into paper pulp, unbleached paper pulp to be used for molded fiber products or packaging, using in average 50% less energy compared to the traditional processes and 95% less water. So a lot of saving, and also we can set up so this solution, this process, to process 20 ton per day of raw material up to 800 ton per day of raw material into paper pulp. And we also have byproducts coming out of the process that can be used whether for agriculture or for industrial application. So it's a complete circular system.
So my question would be, what is the most difficult aspect to upscale your business? You're both discussing and great example of what is the bioeconomy in different sector and on different cropping systems. But so how can we make that a reality, and how can we scale that in a way? Is the problem changing mindsets and habits? Is it regulations? Is it competition for the same feedstock with other uses? What is your point? And maybe starting with you, Florence.
Yes, thank you. So obviously the first challenge to scale up is to prove to prove it at commercial scale. That's always the first plant that is the most difficult. Then after that, obviously, it's how to set up the other units. Each country is a little bit different on the availability or the regulations on raw material. But also, so on the competition on feedstock, we don't have too much problem because, for example, with anaerobic digester that can use, for example, agri-waste, I mean, we don't see much competition, but more a way to work together and to co-locate. That's the type of sites we like to find for our small plants. And about the change in mindsets and habits, yes, it's interesting really to see that there is more and more change, and the consumers are really want to make an impact, a positive impact for the planet, and are now ready to make changes in their habit and go with products they choose the products that they maybe wouldn't have chosen before, and we hope there will be more brown types products like paper or tissue or kitchen towels that will be purchased by them in the future. And we see there is much more and a huge market therefore for that, for the packaging or other paper products. So yeah, it takes time for habits to change, but it's happening.
Thank you, Florence. Alice, maybe having your opinion briefly on that?
Yeah, I think I agree with Florence that changing mindsets is definitely the key element. It just takes a lot of time to change these mindsets and habits. For us, the problem we're facing is that wine growers have been burning uprooted vines in the open for centuries now. And the first step is to make them realize the impact it can have on the environment, because at the moment, this practice is not forbidden on a national level. They're still allowed to do it. Sometimes a region or a department will put in place a restriction, but it's only dealt with locally, not on a national scale. So there's really a lot of work to be done, both for the mindsets and for the regulations.
Thank you very much to both of you. I just have one final question to finish, because it's time for us to move on. So maybe, two last questions to each of you. How is your business impacted by the current surging prices for energy and agricultural products? And then to finish with, do you have any prospects to generate carbon credits with your business model? Let's start with Florence.
Yeah, so on the first question, the increase of price of energy, obviously it has an impact on the model and the end price of our product, but it's actually for us like an opportunity because having developed a process that is using much less energy than other processes, then there is more demand for what we are offering and the solution we are offering. And concerning the generating carbon credits, well, we are working on this. We know obviously our impact is much lower, but we are currently working on with the company an LCA, so life cycle assessment, and understanding all in more detail all the offsetting, because using the byproducts also for other applications generates carbon credits. So yes, we are looking into this.
Good news. I think very promising perspectives. What about you, Alice?
For us, the surge in prices for energy has really had an impact on our business model, especially. For the energy that we sell, it's actually been good news. But the greatest increase, I think, has been in fuel prices. So the collection service for the vines, we started off with a service that was free of charge for the vine growers, but we have now had to actually charge for this service because otherwise the business model simply could not hold up anymore. However, we're working on a way for vine growers to generate carbon credits, which would actually help them to pay for this collection service as well. And for this, we're working with the French Agency for the Ecological Transition, so the ADEME, and also with the French Wine Institute, IFV, to really write a methodology that would help the vine growers to have these carbon credits.
Well, thank you very much. We have to finish this session now. So thank you to each of you. And now we have to move on to the next session, focusing on biodiversity.
Yes, so really interesting to discuss bioeconomy, but now time to discuss biodiversity. So numerous studies suggest that biodiversity has been decreasing at a fast pace over the last decades. And in order to protect and restore this biodiversity in rural areas, it is key to rely on precise and recent metrics in the first place. The objective is to record numerous criteria such as flying insects, crawling insects, melliferous trips, landscape infrastructures, water points, bird population, and so on. And regardless the index or the methodology that you use, biodiversity recordings need to be done more often and at a lower cost. And their technology can really provide an advantage and can really help. And so last February, we held an innovation session dedicated to the preservation and restoration of biodiversity. And we saw numerous projects that you can see now on the screen, such as camera with computer vision, such as biomonitoring tools, or biodiversity indexes. Today, I'd like us to discuss with one of these company, the UK company AgriSound, represented by Cassie Woodward, its CEO. So I'm welcoming Cassie. Hello, Cassie. And having in the same discussion, Alexandre Benoit, Senior Consultant for Agro Solutions and InVivo Company. And I'll start with you, Alexandre. Let's jump on that. So, Alexandre, I mentioned you're Senior Consultant for Agro Solutions and a referent on biodiversity. How important for you is it to record all the criteria we mentioned before, so to get more measurements on biodiversity levels?
So to address the ongoing biological crisis, we need to gather a wide range of data to deepen our understanding of the processes at stake. And some biodiversity topics have been addressed for decades now, but we are still facing some blind spots on some emerging areas of interest, such as soil biodiversity, for instance. And the other use of data I wanted to bring forward is tracking individual and collective progress in agriculture. And by using practical results, it can help farmers, cooperatives, and other stakeholders to engage discussions on biodiversity and identify possible improvements as well.
So maybe I'll keep on with you, Alexandre. So in order to comment maybe the image that we have on screen, Agrison is developing a sound sensor that aims to detect the presence of pollinators and to map their presence on a screen and at the scale of a field. But of course, you can dezoom and have big mapping of regional areas and the presence of, I think it's more than 10 flying insects that they record on their platform. Can I ask you, Alexandre, what is your opinion on this type of solution and how can it help get us to more measurements on biodiversity and get back this level up?
Yeah. So as you said, Jérôme, the technology developed by Agrisound is based on acoustic monitoring. And it's one example of recent technical evolutions in biodiversity data collection. And it provides a simple way to acquire pollinator data during fieldwork and can replace some manual observations where you need a high level of expertise. These observations are also quite time-consuming for the observer. And this type of technology can be handled by farmers or technicians to track pollinator activity throughout the farm or landscape. And therefore, you can identify low pollinator activity areas and try to improve, your farmer can improve his yields in insect-pollinated crops. And the solution can also be used as an outcome indicator to show that beneficial practices are really effective to pollinator habitat and activity as well.
So we know that there are a lot of farms and companies that are interested in getting this type of numbers on biodiversity in order to implement the good actions to increase these levels. But do you think it will be easy to convince other farmers that would be a bit more conservative, a bit more reluctant in getting to know really what level of biodiversity they have in field? How can we get them on board? Is it a question of raising awareness through identify clear KPIs for them and payment for environmental services? What's your point on that, Alexandre?
So farmers can increase biodiversity and local ecosystem services locally by setting up measures among a wide panel of practices, and using specific data collected on their farms can help choose the most pragmatic measures for nature, crop production as well, and also for the farmer as a human being. And if I step back to Agrisound, farmers can see, as I said, areas where you are lacking pollinator activity and for different species of bees, and then they can decide to implement favorable measures such as wide flower strips or leaving bare ground to foster nesting of white bees. And using this data, farmers can monitor pollinator activity year after year and then assess the need to change their practices over time. Yeah.
And that's as well one area where AgroSolutions can help in consulting this cooperative and farmer, I guess. So maybe last question. So we mentioned raising awareness. We mentioned getting access to more data. What is key for you to make biodiversity the next big topic, the next bioeconomy or the next carbon? Do we lack efforts in terms of financing? Do we need to educate more around this type of problematics? Because some studies are quite alarming on the state of biodiversity worldwide, but in France and in Europe as well. What is lacking for you to make it the next big topic?
Yeah. So biodiversity is today there's less effort on biodiversity related questions, and it's quite behind other emerging subjects such as carbon. And it's an issue we have to tackle in the next years. And when we go back to farmers, they are usually well aware of the practices that they can put in place to increase biodiversity levels on their farms. And however, the implementation is not as widespread as expected because of the difficulty to value these practices by the farmers. And a wide range of actors benefit directly from nature and ecosystem services, such as pollination, pest natural regulation, or even human well-being. And therefore, there's a need to share the financial effort among all these stakeholders. And we really need to rely on different financing schemes and stakeholders, such as agro-industry specifications, public funding, voluntary funding, or even financial products that are needed to be developed. And in order to finance transitional costs, and also to maintain sustainable productions regarding biodiversity and other topics such as carbon storage, for instance.
Explain us what AgriSound is about. We're running late, but do not worry, we take time to hear you today. So
no problem.
Could you tell us more about your sound sensor? Sorry.
Absolutely. So what our technology is effectively a low-cost listening device that is installed in the field or in the production environment, which listens out for the sounds of insects and takes that information and shares that with a simple web app where growers can begin to see where pollinator levels are high and where they are low in any given area. And therefore, what we can use this information to do is target interventions to the areas of greatest need. So that might be establishing wildflower areas in the areas where there is a deficit of pollinators, or it might be around planting different crops into the areas where beneficial insects are most required.
Okay, great. And so why did you choose to focus on the sound sensor? I think I know a bit the answer, but we saw a lot of your competitors going with the camera, with the full artificial intelligence and computer vision system behind. Why did you went with the development of a sound system, and what's the advantage of that?
So sound presents a lot of advantages for growers. So the hardware costs are much lower. So a microphone is much cheaper than a camera, but also the power requirements are also a lot lower as well. So we don't need to have mains electricity. We can power the device from a solar panel, but also the sound files are much smaller to transmit as well. So we can we can use mobile phone data rather than using Wi-Fi or other more complicated forms of communication.
Okay, great. And what are some challenges that you would identify as in the development of a company like AgriSound? I mean, you're in the hardware. It's probably more difficult to touch a lot of different areas rather than if you were in software. So do you need to get access to partnership with technical institute, with cooperative, with large companies? I mentioned a bit what you were doing with Innocent before. What's the pain points that large corp can help you to avoid?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the biggest challenge we have is the fact that, as we've heard already, ecosystem services are perhaps less appreciated than other forms of value on the farm. And therefore, what we really need is large corporates to really start to understand the value that pollinators and other insects and protecting biodiversity can provide, both at a farm level, but also to the wider society as well, and really begin to help to adopt technologies like ours to collect that data, to generate those insights, and therefore we can then try to find suitable business models and financial structures that can support the wider implementation of their technologies, both inside agriculture and outside as well.
So yeah, really interesting what you said, and what strikes me is you mean a wider development of that type of technology. This type of technology can only have an impact if it gets adopted widely. And so, question that I asked to Alexandre before, and I'd like to hear you on that, is how would you convince farmers that are a bit more conservative, reluctant? So I guess you have the ones that are already working on the transition in the UK, and UK has a great momentum on that, but what's your pitch for this type of farmers that would be scared to say, I don't really want to know the level of biodiversity I have on my farm, because if it's bad, it could turn out bad for me. So I don't want to engage in that type of campaign with you, Agrisant. What would you reply to them?
Well, it's a very valid concern, I think. So we work with a whole range of different farmers, both in the UK and beyond, and it's a very common question, actually. Now, what we tell growers is that protecting biodiversity has a clear farm benefit to you. So that might be in the form of subsidy payments, it might be in the form of biodiversity tokens, but it also might be around getting better contracts with retailers or suppliers, or creating a unique point of difference for your local food brand. And we've seen that happen in lots of cases here, where you've got or arable farmers that are well known for protecting different types of birds, or have very high levels of bird biodiversity, or similarly fruit producers that are known for protecting different types of insects. And so it becomes entwined with their brand. And I think that's a really powerful message that we can get out to consumers, not only to try this excellent product because it's doing all this other great stuff, but also to kind of spread awareness of the benefits more broadly. So I'd say to any farmer that was considering looking at this type of technology, don't be afraid, have a look, have a conversation with us, and let's see if we can find a win-win scenario for everyone.
Great, Cassie. Thank you for that, and thank you, Alexandre, as well for the talk. That was really inspiring, and congratulations for the work you are both doing. Thanks a lot. Now time to move on to our next session and move on to agro-industry and focus on new ingredients with the next topic, Quest process. So last topic of the morning, Quest process. We had a session focusing on new ingredients. And so as consumer trends are changing because of environmental awareness or in the pursuit of a healthier diet, the food industry must constantly adapt and innovate to find new sources of protein, plant fibers, and new processes and recipes. And the challenge is to offer more plant-based alternatives to the consumer while insisting on the taste, the level of processing that should be low, and the environmental footprints that should be ideally low as well of these ingredients. In this respect, we can name many innovations from new biorefineries, as we can see on this screen, that could isolate proteins or fibers in the best way, from new sourcing program focusing on new crops that we could see in Europe soon. We can mention quinoa that is already present, lupin or sorghum that are as well starting to get present, and that are crops that, because of their nutritional values and their resiliency to grow in a more uncertain climate, are crops that we will need to be looking in the close future. There is as well the valorization of byproducts. We discussed that, Marie-Cécile, earlier with the Quest Valorize. And the example that we have today is one startup valorizing brewer's yeast. And I like to welcome Juan Londono, CEO of Yeasty. Hello, Juan. How are you doing today?
Hello.
Can you hear me well?
Great. Thank you very much. I can hear you perfectly. Thank you for welcoming me on your stage.
Thanks to you for being there today. So I mentioned, Juan, you are the CEO of Yeasty. I mentioned that you are valorizing brewer's yeast. Could you tell us a bit more about that, maybe?
Sure. So what we do is that we retrieve the brewer's yeast at the breweries. So we get that, we then process it. We isolate the yeast from at the beginning, there's 80% of water, so we have to isolate the yeast. And then we have developed a unique process, which is the bittering process. And that is the key for yeast consumption in human food industries, because yeast from brewers is highly bitter, as the beer that you drink as well. It has that same bitterness that we like in the beer, but that we don't like in our food. So we take out that bitterness, and at the end we have a flour. We dry it, and we have a flour that can be easily incorporated and that has no bitterness.
Great. And so, what would be the final use of this type of ingredients? I think we can see a few applications on the slide. So where could we expect in the next months, if we are being optimistic, or in the next year, to see yeasty ingredients?
Yes, indeed. So many potential applications. We're lucky that we have had interest marks from different markets. There is, of course, the vegetarian flexitarian market that is growing rapidly, for example, in Europe and worldwide. And that, for example, entails incorporations in plant-based preparations, also meat analogs as well. But we could also target, for example, undernutrition or medical nutrition. We could also target sports nutrition. And I saw you received earlier someone from Soufflé. In panification, we could have also an application as well. So many potentials that we're assessing and that we'll be focusing on in the next few months.
Great to hear, Ron. And so what would be the price of such a solution? So you're working in the valorization of this type of brewer's yeast. So you are taking something that used to be a waste, I assume, before, or that was very poorly valorized. So we expect it to be cheaper and get you some kind of competitive advantage in terms of pricing to your other ingredients competitors. What can you tell us about that? Because I believe that in big volumes markets like that, price is really something that is one key success factors for a startup.
Exactly. So you mentioned earlier a few other success factors: nutrition, taste, sustainability. But of course, if you don't have that affordability, it will be very hard to scale and to produce in large volumes. So we want, our aim is really to get to competitive compared, for example, from pea proteins. So something around 5 and 8 euros per kilo. That is the prices, for example, for pea proteins. And we want to be competitive with that type of plant-based proteins.
Juan, what would be the environmental impact of the yeasty project once you have become commercial and fully industrial? What are your expectations?
Indeed. So let's say that the environmental impact is dual. So of course, there's the first part when we replace animal protein, and that is the key, but it's common to all other alternative proteins. And of course, the impact of animal proteins today is at around 50% of global greenhouse gases emissions. So there's a lot of space there for reduction, but also it comes from the circularity. It's quite hard to assess, but today the yeast that is not used is often thrown away at the sewer and has to be treated at a special water treatment stations, and this entails a large also environmental impact due to the energy that is required by those treatment centers.
Thank you very much, Juan. And maybe one very last question. So we mentioned before your young company still and developing your pilot installation. So what can we expect next for yeasty? What are the next months are going to be made of?
Indeed. So still very young, but we have an ambition to grow quickly. So the first step is this year to have a laboratory pilot, so we can produce enough samples to try recipes with different industrials and different markets, to try to build recipes with them. And the idea would be to, thanks to that those recipes and those trials to be able to produce next year, have a pre-industrial pilot to be able to produce between 30 tons and 100 tons next year, starting from next year. And starting from 2025, we aim at having our first plant that would be starting at around 5,000 tons. That's our aim. It's quite ambitious, but we hope we'll get there.
Thank you very much, Ran. That was really interesting to discuss that with you. Have a great day, and that concludes our session.
Thank you
Quest
very
process dedicated on new ingredients. Bye-bye, Ran. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
So we've been discussing with several European startups today and been discussing a lot the European ecosystem. I'd like to conclude this Global Quest session with a very short discussion with an American player. It's an investment fund called an accelerator called SVG Thrive. And for that, I'm very happy to welcome Danny O'Brien on screen today. Hello, Danny. How are you doing?
Hey, Jerome. Hey, everyone. Pleasure to be here today.
Great. So, Danny, you're the head of MAA for Thrive. Could you explain us briefly what is Thrive?
Yes, absolutely. So we're an innovation and investment platform based in Silicon Valley. We've been running about 10 years investing in agri-food tech. We've invested in 85 companies to date from around the world, not just the US. We have 2 accelerator programs, one in Silicon Valley and one in Canada, in Calgary. And I know there's a quick video we can show if we have time, but I know we're up against time as well. So happy to do what you prefer, Jerome.
SVG Ventures Thrive is an innovation and investment platform based in Silicon Valley, and we're focused on the agri-food tech sector. We work with global corporations, farmers, and startups to advance the future of food and agriculture through innovation. We work with over 5,000 startups from 100 countries, and our Thrive Accelerator was ranked the #1 agri-food accelerator by AgFunder. We've graduated an international cohort every year since 2014. Crunchbase ranks SVG Ventures as the most active agtech investor with over 50 investments to date in the sector, and those startups have created almost $1 billion in value. Our open innovation programs and corporate challenges identify technologies for our partners that accelerate their innovation priorities, investment, and acquisition strategies. We were honored to launch the USDA Innovation Imperative at the Agricultural Outlook Forum with the US Secretary of Agriculture. We run major agri-food events and regional challenges around the world with partners like Forbes Media, and these key events are bringing our corporate partners, farmers, investors, and startups and the entire ecosystem together.
Well, we think that Thrive is our most important relationship in terms of understanding the ag tech landscape. The thing that we really appreciate with Thrive is that they help us bring together this whole vast landscape of tech startups to our industry. And that's really a great value because there's so much going on in this space that for us it'd be too much to try to make sense of, but Thrive does a great job of that.
Being a part of Thrive has meant an incredible network of world-leading ag tech entrepreneurs, as well as very powerful connections to large corporations who are interested in or already actively engaged in innovation in agriculture.
People have great ideas around the world, and what they've done a really nice job of is convince these folks, one, to come and interact with us, two, to listen to our problems so they can then adopt and adapt their technology or their solution to our problems. And that's going to make change and improvement and sustainability move ahead much more quickly for our industry. And so Thrive helps bridge that gap between the know-how in Silicon Valley and the application here with growers in the Salinas Valley and growers around the world.
It is really something that you couldn't get on your own as a startup. There's just no way you could facilitate that type of networking and that type of opportunity without someone like Thrive. And I think they just do it best.
A really great illustration of what Thrive is about. Danny, I think we've got some quite a big announcement today of transatlantic opportunities for startups between our two organizations.
Absolutely. So as you can see, we've built a big ecosystem in the US and North America, and it's global as well, but definitely centered in North America. And we've been working with the InVivo team for a number of months now and building a program that can help European and French entrepreneurs in the sector expand into North America, and likewise helping our network of North American startups expand into Europe via the Firm Leader program. So it's something we're really excited about. I think a transatlantic bridge is badly needed. To connect the two continents, which are already very close in many ways. Many farmers share the same challenges as well, or similar challenges as well. We spend a lot of time working with farmers groups to understand their pain points and how we can help them improve via innovation. And things like labor challenges, water management, moving to more sustainable practices. These are some of the big topics that are coming up in North America. And maybe there are solutions here in Europe that can help solve those and enter the big market. So it's something we're really excited about. We're going to start working with a number of startups in our network to help them expand transatlantically. And I'm really excited to see where this partnership takes us.
Great to hear, Danny. Thank you very much for your testimony today, and looking forward to share information, share intel together with your team, and really create more opportunities for startups to get access to development in North America and vice versa, to help through the InVivo Soufflé network startups to soft land in Europe. Thank you very much, Danny. And that concludes our Global Quest sequence of today. And now time to conclude. Thank you, Danny.
Thank you.
This was a really interesting morning with different themes. We've seen the different challenges for over 2 years. Olivier Kitty, Director Strategy, RSC and Digital for InVivo Group. So what is your takeaway messages from these 2 hours, and what do you anticipate for the future? Now, just a few words about my takeaway messages. Well, it is interesting, exciting. It will generate confidence in the future. Now, I have to conclude this session, this morning session, and also a year of work with the teams of the group, the teams of Global Quest, our partners, cooperative partners, and also SMEs who work on this. Now, Thierry mentioned the essence of Quest, which is innovating, but also supporting the agricultural world through transition. He uses some words like contributing to produce more in a sustainable manner, to scale up, to implement as quickly as possible these solutions to achieve our objectives. So we are convinced that technology and agronomy can make the impossible possible, including high-tech in the old economy, in order to contribute to mitigating climate change. Now, the 6 themes of this year: protection of crops, optimizing resources, regenerating soils, preserving biodiversity, valorization of byproducts, development of new ingredients, aim at generating new initiatives and positive impacts on our environment today. What do we see? We see that technology is accessible, it exists, it's being deployed, it's available in several areas, in the agro area, but also the industry area. What we also see this morning, and I'm really excited about this, is that we are really responsive and active in implementing the solutions. BioLine, Firm Leader, and Soufflé, which is joining the group. And our capacity to deploy, to develop, to adopt. I've heard that this morning. We have all this today. We need to prove, to deploy usage cases, This is the key elements. We can achieve this transition together to help agriculture, agri-food business, and also to protect the environment. As I said in the introductory part, we are confident in the future, in our capacity to develop innovative solutions, but also economically sound solutions. Otherwise, without economic performance, innovation cannot be sustainable. Now, for the future, Global Quest will continue next year with the activities of Soufflé, in addition to our historic activities, agriculture, processing industry, motivated R&D teams will continue, and we will also amplify our activities in France, at the international level, in France, in Europe, with all our partners. We will work on our 6 themes. We will continue to work on them. Agroecology, climate, very major challenges. You can't solve them overnight. But we will also have other challenges to tackle with our industries. And all this will be done with our partners and the support of group alliance. When you speak about support, you need to move faster because there is an emergency, climate emergency. But it's a long-term work also. You need more work on a long term. All the partners have mentioned that this morning in order to continue working unrelentlessly. Our partners who have supported us, we will thank you for your past support and for the future. And the startups, the SMEs, which continue to work in France and at international level to work on this issue so that we can be leaders in the transformation of agriculture and agri-food industry to make sure that the 4.0 farm, like 4.0 industry, is turned into a reality very soon. And to conclude, we will meet again very soon for the next session of InVivo Quest. Thank you, Olivier. Thank you to all of you for having attended this webinar. There is a replay accessible. Just concluding words. Thank you to all those who were with us online, over 100. Thank you to all of you. If you still have some questions, we can answer them by email, and a replay of the video will be available online very soon. Thank you to all of you, and see you soon. Thank you.